My name is Maya Carter, and for a long time, I thought I was living the kind of life every woman dreams of. We lived in a glass house overlooking the ocean in Malibu. Every morning, sunlight poured into our bedroom like liquid gold. Ryan, my husband, would stand by the window, sipping his coffee, and smile at me. That smile, it always made me feel safe, loved, protected. I thought we were unstoppable. Ryan Carter was the man who could turn anything into gold. That's what everyone said. He owned a real estate firm, Carter & Co., and was known for taking impossible deals and making them work. Newspapers wrote about him. Business magazines called him the genius who never fails. And me? I was the woman who believed every word. Every evening we had dinner at home, just the two of us. Candles, wine, laughter. Ryan talked about expanding his company to New York. He said he wanted to build something for us, something that would last generations. Sometimes I look at him and think, this is what forever feels like. But sometimes there were small cracks. A late-night phone call he wouldn't answer in front of me, a sudden business trip he couldn't explain, or the way he changed the topic whenever I asked about our finances. Still, I trusted him. Because that's what love does to you, it blinds you with hope. The day everything changed started beautifully. It was our 5th anniversary. Ryan had planned something special. He told me to wear something elegant, and not to ask questions. We drove through the sparkling streets of Los Angeles until we stopped at a rooftop restaurant downtown. There were fairy lights everywhere. The whole place felt magical. For a moment, I forgot about every worry. When we sat down, he took my hand. Maya, he said softly, you've been my everything since the day I met you. I smiled. And you've been mine. He looked into my eyes. I made some mistakes before I met you. But since you came into my life, everything's been different. I didn't understand what he meant, but his tone carried something heavy. Then he pulled out a small box. Inside was a diamond bracelet. For the woman who made me whole again, he said. Everyone around us clapped when I kissed him. I thought it was a moment of love, but now, when I look back, I realize it was guilt. A week after that dinner, Ryan seemed different. He spent more time locked in his study. He started avoiding my eyes when I asked about the company. One night, I walked into his office to surprise him with dinner. He jumped, quickly closing his laptop. Hey, I said softly. What are you hiding? He laughed nervously. Just a boring report, babe. I wanted to believe him, but my chest tightened. That laugh wasn't his usual laugh, it was forced. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept wondering, what report was he hiding? Something told me there was more behind that screen. The next morning, I was watering the plants when my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mrs. Carter? A woman's voice asked. Yes. Who's this? This is Anna. I used to work for your husband. My heartbeat quickened. Work? You mean at Carter & Co.? Yes, she said, her voice trembling. I shouldn't be saying this, but you deserve to know. Ryan Carter wasn't always honest about his money. There were bankruptcies before. Big ones. The line went dead. I froze, staring at the phone. Bankruptcies. That didn't make sense. Ryan was successful. Everyone knew that. Still, the doubt had entered my mind and it wouldn't leave. That night, while Ryan showered, I went into his study again. My hands were shaking. I didn't even know what I was looking for until I found it. A folder labeled Old Accounts, Confidential. Inside were documents with other people's names, investors, clients, companies that no longer existed. And then, one word that made my stomach drop. Bankruptcy. There were 3 different cases. 3 different cities, all under Ryan Carter's name. I felt my whole world collapse. The man who promised me forever had built it all on lies. When Ryan came out, I was sitting there, the folder open on the desk. He froze. What is this, Ryan? His face went pale. You shouldn't have seen that. Tell me it's not true. He sighed, running his hands through his hair. It's complicated, Maya. No, I said. It's simple. You lied. We argued for hours that night. I cried, he shouted. Every word felt like glass. He said the bankruptcies were old mistakes, that he had fixed everything. But then, why did I find recent letters? Why were there new debts listed? You don't understand, he said, his voice rising. I did what I had to do to survive. To survive? I whispered. You mean to deceive? He slammed his hand on the desk. You think this life just happens? The house, the cars, the trips. You think that comes without risks? I stepped back, shaking. So you risked everything, including me. He looked at me coldly. If you can't handle how business works, maybe you're not cut out for this life. That was the first time he looked like a stranger. For days we barely spoke. He left early, came home late. And when he did, he smelled like whiskey. I started sleeping in the guest room. Every night, I could hear him talking on the phone, whispering to someone. Words like transfer, papers, and account kept echoing in my head. I began to think maybe he was planning something. Something worse. I didn't know if he was trying to protect me or preparing to leave me. But then came the moment that changed everything. One evening, I came home earlier than usual. The house was silent, too silent. I walked toward Ryan's office, and just before I opened the door, I heard his voice. She doesn't know, he said. Then silence. A pause. And then, don't worry, I'll handle Maya before she finds out. My heart stopped. Before I could process it, the floor creaked and Ryan turned. Our eyes met through the half-open door, his face drained of color. Maya, he started, stepping closer. I stepped back. Handle me? What did you mean by that? He tried to speak, but no words came out. I turned and ran. I didn't even take my bag. I just drove. For hours. I cried until the road blurred. That was the night I realized the man I loved might ruin me. For the next week, I stayed in a small Airbnb near Santa Monica. I told no one where I was. I needed time to think, to breathe. Ryan kept calling, leaving voicemails full of apologies. He said it was just a misunderstanding. He begged me to come home, but my heart wasn't ready to forgive. Not this time. I started meeting a lawyer quietly just to understand my options, and the more I learned, the clearer it became. Everything I had, our home, our money, our company shares, was tied to his name. If he fell, I'd fall with him. I couldn't let that happen. One night, as I sat on the balcony of my small rental, I looked out at the city lights. The same city that had once felt like a dream now looked like a lie. I whispered to myself, "You promised me forever, Ryan, but your forever was fake." Tears rolled down my cheeks, but somewhere inside a fire started to burn. A voice whispered, "You're not done, Maya. You'll rebuild. You'll rise." I didn't know how yet, but I knew one thing: I would never go back to being blind again. That night, I made my silent vow. If Ryan's lies had destroyed our world, I would build a new one on truth, and I would make him face everything he had hidden. Because sometimes revenge doesn't start with anger, it starts with heartbreak. When I left that house in California, the one I once called home, I didn't even look back. The last thing I saw was Ryan's face, blank, lifeless, almost relieved to see me go. I walked out with one suitcase, a handful of dollars, and a heart that had been ripped apart. For the first time in years, I had no plan, no direction, no one. I remember sleeping in my car for 2 nights. The city lights flickered above me like mocking stars. But somewhere inside, I made a silent promise: one day, I'll rebuild myself, and when I do, he'll see what he lost. I found a small studio apartment near the edge of San Diego. It wasn't fancy. Peeling paint, broken blinds, but it was mine. I used my last few dollars to buy groceries, instant noodles, bread, and a small bottle of milk. Every night, I'd sit by the window, scrolling through job listings, my fingers trembling with anxiety. No one wanted to hire a Woman whose husband's name was in every financial scandal headline. Everywhere I went, Ryan's shadow followed me. His face was on the news. Former entrepreneur Ryan Carter under investigation for fraud and embezzlement. He had used people's trust the same way he used mine, promising everything, giving nothing, and leaving behind destruction. One evening, a letter came. It wasn't from a friend or company. It was from the bank. Final notice, joint account liability. Ryan had listed my name on one of his shady accounts, the one he used for illegal transfers. My name, my signature forged, but still there. Tears rolled down my face as I read it again and again. He had destroyed me emotionally. Now he wanted to destroy me legally. That night, I stared at myself in the mirror. My hair was a mess, eyes swollen, voice cracked. But in that reflection, I saw something new: anger. It wasn't the anger of a broken woman. It was the anger of someone who had finally woken up. The next morning, I walked to a local cafe near my apartment. They were hiring part-time help. Minimum wage. But it was a start. For weeks, I worked without complaint. Cleaning tables, serving coffee, smiling at strangers who didn't know my story. And slowly, something inside me began to heal. Every cup I served felt like a small piece of my dignity being rebuilt. Every tip I earned felt like proof that I could stand on my own again. At night, I started writing journals, ideas, feelings. And then one day, I stumbled on something unexpected, a story. It was about a woman who was betrayed but refused to stay broken. It was my story. So, I turned those journal pages into a short article and sent it, anonymously, to a small online magazine. A week later, they replied, "We'd love to publish this." The article went viral within days. Thousands of women commented, "I felt this. This is my story too. Whoever wrote this, thank you for speaking our pain." They didn't know it was me, Maya Carter, the wife of the man who had conned half of California. Soon, I was writing more. The same magazine offered me a column. Then another site reached out. Then a third. By the end of 6 months, I was earning more than I ever had while living with Ryan. Not millions, but enough to live free, eat well, and sleep peacefully. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. But peace has a funny way of testing you. One afternoon, while returning from the cafe, I saw a familiar car parked near my building, Ryan's black Mercedes. He got out, wearing sunglasses, his arrogance still intact. "Maya," he said, pretending to smile. I froze. "What are you doing here, Ryan?" He took off his glasses and sighed dramatically. "You know, things haven't been great for me lately. The court froze my assets. I need help." I almost laughed. Help? From the woman he tried to destroy? I kept my calm. "What kind of help?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Just until I get my new investors, maybe a small loan?" The same man who forged my name for his frauds was now begging for money, and that's when I realized revenge didn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it's just about winning silently. I invited him for coffee, not out of kindness but strategy. When he sat across from me, talking about his new plans, I recorded every word on my phone. Every lie, every fake deal, every illegal name he mentioned. Then I quietly forwarded the recording to the same journalist who once exposed his fraud case. Within 48 hours, new headlines flooded the internet. Ryan Carter, caught again, secret deals exposed. And this time there was no escape. His accounts were seized. His partners abandoned him. His car, his company, everything gone. He tried to call me dozens of times. I didn't answer. He even came to my apartment again. This time, I didn't open the door. A month later, I was invited to speak at a women's conference in Los Angeles. The topic: rebuilding after betrayal. I stood on that stage, looking at the audience, hundreds of women who had been cheated, lied to, left broken. I told them my story. I didn't use his name, but every woman in the room could see him in their own lives. When the speech ended, They gave me a standing ovation. That night, I received an email from the publisher of a famous magazine offering me a deal for a book. My life after his lies. It was surreal. I had turned my pain into purpose. 3 months later, I received a letter again, this time from Ryan, handwritten, greater than, Maya, I've lost everything. My house, my money, even my reputation. I'm living in a motel. Please, if there's still any part of you that cares, help me. Ryan. I read it in silence. No tears, no anger. Just calm. The next day I visited him. He looked nothing like the man I once loved. Unshaven, desperate, eyes hollow. Maya. You came, he whispered. Yes, I said softly. I came to say goodbye. He looked confused. Goodbye. I nodded. You promised us forever, Ryan. But forever doesn't survive on lies. He tried to speak, but I continued. You ruin people for money. You ruined me for pride. And now, you're paying for all of it. I stood up. I hope someday you'll understand what love means, not power, not money, just truth. And I walked away. Today, I live in a small beachside house in Santa Monica. The waves crash gently outside my window as I write this. My book became a bestseller. I was offered $150,000 for the rights. I donate most of it to women who are starting over, just like I once did. Sometimes, I still think about Ryan, not with hate, just with a quiet lesson. He thought his past bankruptcies would destroy our future. But instead they built mine. Because in the end, the best revenge is peace. When life breaks you, rebuild silently. When they try to destroy you, rise gracefully. Because the loudest revenge is the life they can't stand to watch you live.